Tottenham over the past few years have gone from being a Big Six club to now a relegation fight. In this video, I will be going over how this failure occurred, notably their managerial carousel and their poor transfer planning. I'll then lay out how I would change Tottenham and how they can get themselves back into the Champions League places. I first want to take a look at the club structure of Tottenham and this managerial carousel that we've seen over the past few years since Pochettino has left the club. We've seen great managers come in, we've seen mediocre managers come in, the likes of Jose Mourinho, Ryan Mason twice, Nuno Espirito Santo, Antonio Conte, Christian Stellini, Ange Postecoglou, Thomas Frank, the latest manager to get sacked, and now interim manager Igor Tudor. Mourinho and Conte are both legendary managers, world-class managers that have won big trophies at other clubs. They're both serial winners. Now, you could argue that Mourinho's time had kind of passed when he was with Tottenham, but even after his time there, he went on to manage Roma and win them a European Cup. Both Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte were hired in the middle of the season, in November to be exact, and then both managers were then sacked the following spring, not even giving them a full 2 seasons at the club. They both only had one transfer window to try to turn this mess around that is Tottenham. Ange Postecoglou was recently on the Overlap podcast, and obviously everything that he says you have to take with a grain of salt, since he was sacked, but he shared some very interesting bits surrounding the club, its structure, and how it operates. In that interview on the Overlap, he's quoted saying, "Tottenham as a club will say, we're one of the big boys, and I don't think they are in terms of my experience over the last year or two. This is what I mean when I say that Tottenham were a Big Six club and have since just fallen down the ranks. Going through manager after manager is hard on these players. There's no sense of stability. These players get used to a manager being sacked, an interim coming in, and then a new manager coming in the following summer. That's not good for building team morale, building team chemistry, building a team that wants to play together. They have to learn a new identity each season, and that's not good for fostering a winning team. That's not how you get into Europe. That's not how you stay in Europe once you've gotten there. Because Tottenham are 4th in the Champions League right now, but how much longer are they going to stay in that competition? When the going gets tough, we've seen this team drop their heads, and I think we're going to see it again in the coming weeks. Speaking on Big Ange, this segues perfectly into my second point. Tottenham's transfer activity and wage structure does not resemble that of a big club. It never has, and for the foreseeable future, it never will. After Tottenham's first season with Ange Postecoglou, they finished 5th, which in the modern times would get them Champions League football the way the Champions League is set up. That would be a major accomplishment for Spurs, and it was a big step for them back then. The only problem was Ange wasn't backed in that first summer in charge. Instead of giving him that proper backing, as Ange said, all they gave him was Solanke and a bunch of kids. Archie Gray was purchased, who was only 18. Wilson Odobert was only 19. And Lucas Bergvall was 18 as well. That's not going to help a team qualify for Champions League football. It's only kicking the problem down the road. After seeing this despicable transfer window, this made me want to dive into Tottenham's transfer activity and history even more. I want to go back all the way to the 2015-16 Premier League season. Everyone remembers it so fondly. That was when Leicester came up from the championship, took the league by storm, and won the Premier League title, something that no one thought that they could ever do. It was a legendary run for Leicester City. But the team that came in second place that season were Tottenham Hotspur under Pochettino. After finishing second, what did the Tottenham board reward Pochettino with? Moussa Sissoko, Vincent Janssen, and Victor Wanyama. The most expensive of those lot was around £35 million for Moussa Sissoko. That's not supporting a manager. That's not giving him the tools to succeed. You've just finished second. You're in the Champions League. You're gaining momentum. Yes, that was when Dele Alli took the league by storm and was playing out of his mind. Harry Kane was becoming the striker that he turned out to be. But without support in the transfer window and buying world class players, Tottenham were never going to grow and build on that second place finish. The ownership at the time just assumed, oh, if he got second in this season where everyone else had a down year, then maybe he could do it again. And they were wrong. And they've always been wrong. Fast forward a few years to when Antonio Conte came in. He has a very distinct system and a very distinct style of play. He uses a three-back formation. In his first window, the club go out and purchase Richarlison, Christian Romero, Yves Bissouma, Destiny Udogie, and Jed Spence. They also got a few players in on loan and for some free transfers, including Pedro Porro and Ivan Perisic. But this was never going to be enough for a Big Six team. You can't rely on a striker from Everton that never really saw the highest of highs in Richarlison. You then bring in a mediocre midfielder in Bissouma, one for the future. Destiny Udogie and Jed Spence, fullbacks, again, for the future. And Christian Romero, a center back that was known to have issues with his aggressiveness, and we've seen that with his whole career at Tottenham so far. The red cards, the yellow cards, the match suspensions, it's all added up. Not only is Tottenham's transfer planning poor, but their wage bill is not that of a Big Six. They have only had 3 players in the last decade that have exceeded that £200 a week threshold. Number 1, you have Harry Kane. Deservedly, he's one of the best strikers we've seen in Premier League history, to be quite frank. Number 2 was Tanguy Ndombele, a signing that flopped harder than a fish in the bottom of a boat trying to save its life. And number 3, Gareth Bale, earning £600,000 a week to rot on the bench as he just went out every weekend after the match and played a bit of golf. Having this sort of wage structure should not be something to be proud of. You have to pay world-class players a world-class amount, a deserving amount. Now that I've given you all the bad about Tottenham, I'm going to give some ways that I would change the club, the way that I would look going forward. First, I'm hiring a manager for a proper project. That means I will give them 3 years no matter what. Because what's the other alternative right now? Being in a relegation fight, not being in Europe. It's already happening to the club. Why not try something new? Arsenal did it with Arteta. I've preached this to my friends for so long. Arsenal fans wanted Arteta out after the first year or two. They were all chanting Arteta out at the games, at AFTV, in the post-match pressers, and everything. Yet look where they are now. Arsenal are top of the league. Arteta's been properly backed. He has his own squad that he's created, the style that he wants to play. That is what Tottenham need to do. They need to give a manager a minimum of 3 years to really implement his system for these players to develop and get used to. Now, hiring a manager is going to be tough this summer because you have the likes of Manchester United looking for a manager who are, in fact, a bigger club, and Liverpool might be looking for a new manager as well. I personally would be eyeing up the likes of Julian Nagelsmann or a Marco Silva. Marco Silva has done brilliant things for Fulham, and it's quite impressive that no one has hired him to a big job yet. And I think this is the summer that it finally happens. I would also like to take a look at Marcelino Garcia Terrell. I probably butchered that pronunciation, but he's the Villarreal manager. Villarreal are currently sat 3rd in La Liga. They have a very tactical style of play, pressing, moving the ball around quickly, and I think it's a matter of time before this manager is scooped up by a big club. I then wouldn't put enormous pressure on him in the first year. I wouldn't say, oh, I demand Champions League football. I demand you to be in Europe. You let him implement his culture, implement his style of play, get the locker room on his side, because, as I said, these players are dropping their heads. They didn't want to play for Thomas Frank anymore. Really let this manager be accustomed to his surroundings. And if he finishes in the top half of the table, brilliant. Because as of right now, you can have high standards as a Tottenham fan. From there, I'd look to build. After his first season, I would give him top-of-the-notch signings. Break the wage structure down. Give a couple of guys over that £200,000 a week threshold. When you start to strip away those harsh limitations of European football and those demands of really playing exciting, attacking football in that first season and let him build his defense, or maybe he does build his attack first, you then start seeing progress on an exponential level. You start seeing it over the years. And patience is a hard thing to come by these days because every football fan wants that automatic success. We want that quick dopamine hit of winning a bunch of games on the bounce and getting into the Champions League and competing for the Premier League title, but that's not how it works. You have to build something. If Tottenham don't make a drastic change in how they approach their managerial hires, their transfer planning, and their wage structure, then I don't see how this club can come back from this. And eventually, another club will swoop in and take their position in the Big Six. Thank you for watching. Leave a like and drop a comment down below what you think Tottenham's problems are. Subscribe to the channel as I have much more football and tennis related content coming soon. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys next time.